Okay, welcome to the 87th episode of an Evolving Man podcast. Today, I'm excited to be speaking to Sam Adams. Sam is the founder of First Men and Red Phoenix Rewilding, which are companies that offer workshops and gatherings to create a more connected world through rewilding ourselves and the planet. He has 2 decades of experience in the fields of land care and permaculture and mental health. His belief is that our wounds can become our greatest gifts. So, welcome, Sam.
Thank you, Piers. Great to see you. Great to be here again.
Yeah. So, I would love, yeah, I mean, the segue I love to begin with is how I met you. And obviously, I met you at Menfest in 2019, which was 5 years ago. And then we saw each other each year either at the Mankind Project or at Menfest. And I was really inspired to see you beginning this journey with First Men. So I
Mm.
really, bless you for the work you're now doing with men.
Thank you, Piers. Yeah, and you were a big part of my origin into this, and those years at Menfest, as you say, they were special years and really formative for me, finding that sense of tribe and piecing together the different aspects of masculinity and how we can show up as men.
So I'd love you to talk a little bit about how you got into the work you are now doing with men. How did that begin?
It's a really personal journey. It's a story of me having to unpick some of the themes or stories I was told as a child about what and how I should behave, what it means to be a boy, what it means to be a man. Things like boys don't cry, boys don't fight, be a good boy, don't make a noise. They were unhelpful. They were a burden. So I've been unpicking all of that. And that's been why I've got to this place today, is on that journey of healing and redeeming curses and lies that were put on my life, is finding a new way to be me, a more authentic way that is actually who I am, and that sovereign integrity around me. This is Sam. This is how I want to show up in the world. And yeah, for me, it's about finding home in the natural world, and me as an animal, us as human beings outside, connecting with the elements and the seasons, the plants and the trees. That was the missing piece in my childhood, and I connected now, and over the last 20 or so years with the natural world to find myself and to come home.
Beautiful. Thank you, Sam. Home in the natural world. Yeah, I see how disconnected, disassociated we've become from the natural world. I
Mm.
started to practice probably a year ago, 6 months ago, every morning going into the garden barefoot and just doing a sit spot. John Young from
Yeah.
the Coyote's Guide talks about that. And I
Mm.
found that so beautiful. I don't like it when it's snowing, I have to say. But I found it lovely to reconnect with nature. So,
Mm.
yeah, how have you found that as you've reconnected with nature?
Mm. Yeah, it started in a similar way to you, just making time each day to slow down and to just breathe, connect with whatever's happening in my garden. I had and still have these hobbies of hiking, swimming in rivers, beach trips in the summer, camping and bushcraft and carving and these primal skills outside around campfires. But over the last couple of years, it's sort of deepened and spread wider than those hobbies into more of a interconnected web of relationship with the seasons, and knowing that, like the trees and the plants and animals, it's essential for me to hibernate in winter. And one of those curses that I think we have, particularly in capitalist societies, is we must be productive 52 weeks a year.
Mhm.
that isn't how the natural world exists. So developing a practice that is more than daily, it's seasonal. So I slow down in the winter, I work shorter days, I sleep more, I listen to my body. It wants to put on fat in the winter, and I eat more meat and I eat more cake. And then come now, this time of year in the spring, I'm not interested in cake anymore. I'm not interested in meat as much. And I'm drawn to other foods. And I'm noticing I want to start traveling again, and I want to start rising like the sap, like the daffodils, the white snowdrops in the garden. And I noticed that shift throughout the year. So that feels like I am in a cohesive, coherent oneness with what the sun is doing, and over this annual cycle. I mean, it's much more than that, but that is really exciting for me at the moment, and provides this map and this framework to make sense of myself and my life throughout the 12 months.
Thank you, Sam. So I'd love you to maybe go into a bit more depth about this map, this solution. What is it for you? What is this map?
The map is a way home. I talked a bit about this for me personally, but I sense that for many of us men, we are lost.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lostness. It's men and women. It's Western society as a whole. I would say we are cultural orphans. That where are the points of reference to make sense of what it means to be me? Is it social media? Is it how much money I make? How big my house is? How many children I have, or degrees from university? And all of these milestones of achievement have been the benchmarks and the frameworks for our parents' generation, but they don't work anymore. Did they ever work? They certainly don't work for me. But what is timeless beyond universities and mortgages and currencies is the sun and the moon and the plants and the seasons. So I feel like I am remembering, and this map is a map of remembering an ancient way of living in integrity and alignment with our animal nature, living in alignment with our instincts, with these primal ways, or a pre-industrial tribal culture that in the West we don't really have. We've forgotten. So this map is the natural world, and it's a way home to find ourselves.
Thank you. So if someone's listening to this, Sam, and they're like, well, what does that mean? How do I connect? What are some directions for someone who wants to follow this map, who feels lost?
Mm. There's different ways to find this map, and the beauty of it is it's unique to each man or woman, because there's infinite ways of being human. But these reference points are metaphorical or mythological reference points that have layers of meaning and symbolism that can help us understand ourselves. So early on my journey, I would go every week to a forest on my own, and I found a copse of trees that felt right. As I walked, I felt, this is it. I want to stop. I got a compass out and I checked in which direction was east and west and south and north. And I noticed that there were 4 trees in the copse that lined up with the compass points. And I made this my home base for my weekly visits, my therapeutic container, to deepen that connection with myself and the wild. And as I looked to the east, if say I was there at sunrise, I looked to the east, I might have put my hand on that tree, and I thought about, what does the east represent? Obviously, it's the sunrise. And the sunrise represents a new day, and by extension, a new week, a new month, a new year, a new relationship, a new opportunity. And then what feelings come up with that? What does it taste like? What does it look like in my eyes? What does it smell like in the east? And using play and imagination to connect with east. And then I would go around the circle, connecting with the south and the west and the north, and unpicking what is there. What's the sun doing in each of those? What's the seasons doing if the east is spring and the south is summer? And then how is that a reflection to myself? So if someone's listening, the invitation is to look at the compass points and consider how is the sun's movement and the seasonal movement a reflection of one's own psyche or journey through life. So what is your east? What is new for you? What are you feeling each morning? Checking in with yourself. How do I feel? What emotions are up for me? What is moving? What am I birthing? And then down to the south, what's hot for me right now? What am I passionate about? What's my summer energy? Do I feel vigorous about? Do I feel angry about? Do I feel like being in action of? Moving around to the west, it's slowing down now. The sun's setting, it's autumn. So what am I harvesting in my life? All of these research questions in each quadrant. What am I harvesting? What can I give thanks for? What can I integrate into the barn, the storehouse of my soul? And what have I harvested from the previous two steps? And then finally, to get to the north, it's midnight. There's this tranquility, there's this transcendence, maybe some prayers come up, some memories from the whole journey, some gratitudes, or some things that need to die before we go around the wheel again and the new day. So at midnight, laying to rest, allowing to die, saying goodbye to a relationship, a business, a house, and thinking, tomorrow is a new day. I'll birth something different.
Beautiful. What a beautiful practice. It does bring memories actually that when I first came to where I live now in West Yorkshire, I was doing shamanic training. And I did about 5 years, and once a week was part of the training was I had to go and find a tree and just sit by it and ask similar questions, right? In the south and in the west and the north. It was like you said. And I found it very powerful, very good for just one being in nature, but also dropping from my head and thinking into, feeling and watching nature around me.
Yeah. I'd like to add that it's more than just a cerebral practice, but it's dropping into the body and the heart. As I went around each tree, I might be really drawn to one direction more than another. I might go through three of them really quickly and land on a fourth where I'm overcome with emotion, really angry about something. So then I lean into that. I will shout, I'll pick up a dead branch and I'll smash it on the floor, and I will scream, and I'll allow a safe expression of that wild anger that's mirrored in the heat of the summer. Or I'll be crying. I'll give myself permission. It's new. It's a new day, but I miss yesterday. I miss that relationship, or that is painful. And to really cry and think, thank you, East, for teaching me. It's okay to cry like the dew on the morning grass. I am wet through with tears because I am heartbroken. And yeah, it's more than just a cerebral process. It's really feeling each thing in an embodied way.
Yeah, thank you. And coming back to, a lot of my audience are people who've been through trauma, childhood trauma, or um, boarding school. And you mentioned that thing about being orphaned. And I feel that as a society, we are orphaned and we are almost disconnected from nature by just how we are with, with the world, but also this sense of, I think in one of his books, Nick Duffel says this idea at boarding school is like this form of matricide. We learn to kill the mother because she's not there. And I see that with our leaders in that same thing that we've just disassociated. We just don't, it's almost that hatred we have for nature And
Mm.
really what I'm hearing with the practices you're sharing is learning to love
Yeah.
nature again.
Yeah. And learning to love that archetypal feminine,
Mm.
archetypal mother that those of us from boarding school, or I grew up in the church, and I judge that to also have been bereft of honoring the feminine. And it was all about masculine discipline and certainty, and no space for the mystery and the emotion or the psychological intelligence and emotional literacy that the feminine represents. So absolutely, Piers, nature practice for me has helped me to embrace femininity, and all around representing part of me. That part of me is a mother, part of me is feminine and nurturing and soft and wants to flow and be in this wonderful space of mystery, beauty, and chaos.
Thank you. Yeah, it reminds me, the original Aramaic, the Lord's Prayer. I mean, in English, the Lord's Prayer is Our Father who art in heaven. But in Aramaic is Al Bum de Vashmaya Nitkadash Shema, which means the O God and Goddess Most High, may you be exalted or something like that. And the
Mm,
question is, what happened to the goddess? What happened to the feminine in
yeah,
translation? And it's such an important part, masculine and feminine.
yeah,
So,
absolutely. Yeah, I love this topic, and I'm glad it's going this way because, yeah, I think we've mistranslated a lot of the scriptures, and Western society took these Middle Eastern faiths and made them just yang energy, just the masculine. And we forgot the goddess, and we forgot all of these things that the divine feminine represents.
beautiful, beautiful. So, we've talked a little bit about the problem. Do you want to go a little bit more into the bit more depth about the men are lost?
Mm,
What are you seeing in the work you do, in, the circles you're in? Where are men at the moment?
mm. Yeah, you're right. Men are lost, confused, hurting, and without these reference points. And it's endemic. I think it's a global challenge, and the opportunity before us is a great awakening and redemption of what it means to be in the masculine pole. I notice that women have had an awakening over the last 100+ years of feminist thinking and redeeming the oppression that's been put on women. So women tell me that they're championing us. They've journeyed through a healthy femininity process for a long time, and men perhaps are just starting this awakening because we've all suffered under the oppression of systems and control, or we might call it the patriarchy. We've all suffered, men and women. So now perhaps is our turn to catch up with the women and join them. I hear regularly women saying, we've been waiting for men to wake up and join this new cultural revolution where we can connect and journey together and create something beautiful. So you asked, where are men at? It's early in the journey. Maybe it's a couple of decades, but still it's quite early to use the compass map. Maybe it's still more in the East territory where men are just learning to give themselves permission to feel things, having grown up in a space that said women are the emotional ones, men don't cry, don't show your emotion, bottle it up. The last 20 years of men's work, I think, has been healing that wound. Say, men, it's okay to be emotional. Not just okay, it's essential. It's part of being human. And grieving that loss and feeling those feelings and untapping the waters of the heart that fill everything, and holding our inner child. What I'm sensing though, Piers, is that we're moving on from that. The next phase of men's work, men's evolution, and men's thought is going to be more around to the south, and to that embodied inner teenager who wants to be more active. He can hold his inner child, and now what change is he going to make in the world? What systems need to be destroyed? What oppression needs to be lifted? What of value needs to be protected? And that's my sense. The next wave for men is awakening of action, an awakening of proactive protectors. Maybe the warrior archetype comes in. How can we stand as an army of brothers to take care of things that have been hurt, like the planet and the soil and the trees and the oceans, and protect those who are suffering because of the old system? And the old system, it's time for it to end, and it will take an army to destroy it. I don't know how, but it's part of embodying a revolution of love and of a new way of working together.
Thank you, Sam. So if, a lot of the people who listen or who I work with, and myself included a few years ago, was disassociation from our emotions. I'm sure you've come across men who have been told you can't cry. What type of processes do you help men and women who are feeling I can't connect with my emotions?
Yeah, because it's not just as simple as turning on a tap, is it? It's not just saying you can cry now. I think one of the blocks for opening such a tap is the fear that other men or anyone else will ridicule us, and they will repeat those curses that we were told. They'll say, man up, why are you crying? And then there'll be shame that comes in. Something's wrong with me because I'm crying, and deep down there's this script. I'm telling my soul that I can't be weak, or I can't show that. So the antidote, from my experience, to shame as a block is to create a space where you won't be interrupted in your tap opening, if you follow me. And it will be not just not interrupted, but it will be encouraged, modeled, celebrated. And what's another word for egged on? Like it will be, you'll be, encouraged and witnessed by other men. That's been a big healing part for me. I think I grew up afraid of men because men are like these role models I've seen who are corrupt, who are violent, who are abusive. So I'm not going to be like them. So I'm not going to be a man. I'm just going to play it small. And I'm afraid of men. But once we enter these circles of men and realize that we're all the same, we're all hurting, we're all scared of each other, who's going to be the first in the group? And there always will be one person to get the ball rolling. And he will then step forward to say, yeah, I'm really sad. And someone else then says, oh, thank you. You've given me language. You've given me permission. You've given me confidence to say, I'm also really sad. And then what happens is this sort of catalytic process where each person can then bring their sadness, and then the body follows. Some people will cry. You don't need to cry, but it's an opportunity to heal all of those wounds, shame, fear, all of these blocks, and begin the unpicking of tears and sadness in that example. The same with anger. One man will step forward and say, I am angry, and I'm going to beat the ground with my fist until it's bloody. That's how angry I am. Or I'll just shout, or I'll jump about, or I'll clench my fists and then I'll roar. And then another man will say, wow, actually, that was quite beautiful. I think I'd like to have a go being angry. And it might just come out as a sentence, or it might come out as a roar. He might have a tire in front of him and he can just hit that tire, or a pillow to scream into. And little by little, a man finds the confidence and the bravery to take that risk, to be vulnerable, to shed a tear, to raise his voice, to be seen. And it's the circle that holds that.
Mm. So what I'm hearing is the importance of doing it together, whether it's a group of women, a group of men, or men and women, but to do it, not do it alone. Or, an aspect of it sounds like the ceremonies in nature is alone, but then an aspect of the healing is in groups.
Yeah. Yeah. All of those pairs.
Mm.
Yeah.
Mm. Mm. Yeah, it's interesting. I think I did the Mankind Project about 8 years ago, and I remember doing the weekend, and I felt really ashamed to be a man, and that really came to the fore, because of the way I was brought up, but my father and other things. I really felt that shame, and I think I did cry a lot, to release that. So, thank you for sharing.
Mm. Yeah. I'll jump in an
Mm.
example where I cried a lot. I was heartbroken one stage in my life, and I went walking into the fields and farms around where I live. And this deep belly cry was within me, and I couldn't walk anymore, Piers. It was such a heavy grief,
Mm.
and it was new for me. I had never cried like that, maybe not for 20, 30 years. And I fell to my knees, and I remember crawling. I couldn't walk, so I just sort of dragged my body under a hedge, and I lay there weeping until I don't know if I fell asleep, but I wasn't sure if I was going to get home. I just thought I was going to die under this hedge. The tears were so strong. Um, yeah. And I share that because that was a big moment for me, but I also share it because nature held me. That hedge and that field was a safe place for me to be that raw, that vulnerable, and through all of that to heal a bit,
Mm.
a bit more.
Mm. Thank you, thank you. Yeah, I really resonate with that. I mean, I had a period in my late 20s, spent time in the Buddhist monastery and spent every day crying for about 2 years. And it was just like that every single day. I couldn't stop, partly because I just suppressed all this grief
Mm,
down. And it kind of reminded me of being a child, the child who gets upset, has a big cry, total release, and then he's like, she's gets back to the feet, back to normal. And I see that, and I think this idea of we always push it down, we don't allow that full grief up. And
mm,
when I did, I really felt transformed by just giving the space. Now, how
mm,
did you feel after when you woke up? How were you
mm.
feeling? How did you feel the next day?
Really tender, but like having a splash of water on the face. It was cleansing as well. I felt lighter. It was a catharsis. And something shifts in the building blocks of a soul to go to those depths and that rawness. It's like, okay, I made it through. It's like the cold water therapy, just to repattern our relationship to a shock and say, I made it through the cold ending to my shower. I can handle this. And what it makes me think of is some grief came up just this week, and I didn't suppress it. I just acknowledged it, felt it deeply. Sometimes I'll journal or I'll tell a friend or just sit with it, breathe, and then it's gone. It lasts half a day, it lasts a day, and then we'll come back another day. But yeah, building that resilience to these uncomfortable emotions.
Mm. So would you say that's important for us as men and women who've maybe suppressed is to give space, like you're saying this last week, for these emotions? You mentioned about the seasons. Obviously, you have more space and time in the winter.
Mm.
most of us are so busy, we just don't stop. And this is one of the symptoms of trauma, certainly boarding school, is workaholism. So we never stop
Mm,
because I feel on one level we don't feel what we're feeling.
mm. Yeah. Yeah, I was like that. I would say I was emotionally numb till my early 20s. Never been shown the path of emotional safety. It takes time, you're right. It takes discipline and it takes courage to go there. Because if it wasn't scary, we'd be there often, right? But because it is scary, we close it down. So yeah, making space to acknowledge it. That's perhaps the first step. And then maybe step two, to verbalize it, act on it, tell a friend. There was one time of hardship in my life where I needed support. I could not do it on my own. So I reached out to my men's circle, and every day for over a month, I made sure I connected with a brother, and we would go for a walk or at the least have a phone call every day for 30, 40 days. It saved my life. I wasn't sure I was going to get through that much pain, that much grief and shock. It was again the circle of men holding me, listening to me, counseling me, or just being there, just knowing I wasn't alone. And that continues to get me through hard moments where I have these bouts of feeling that depression, that heaviness. Like, maybe I'd want to withdraw into a cave, but it is with the knowledge that I have a circle of men and sisters around me who have my back.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, I feel that so many of us feel we've got to do it on our own. And actually, what I'm hearing from you in my own experience is no, we can ask for help and, it's good to have support.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's one of the biggest successes of this system of oppression. The patriarchy excels in divide and conquer. So to divide us from brothers and sisters, to sell us a lie, the fallacy of separation, and to say you're better off on your own. No one else feels that way. You're strange, you're weird. Then we're just gonna pretend we're successful. Everyone else is pretending, oh, we're happy and successful. Look how many followers I've got on social media. Look how much money I've got, how new my car is. It's all bollocks. We're all quite similar. We're all hurting. We're all on this journey of life and need each other. So it takes courage to break that system and those lies, to say, actually, can I be vulnerable with you? Would you hear me? Yeah.
Thank you. It reminds me of the film The Work, which is partly the inspiration for our new documentary as well. Is there's a scene, I'm paraphrasing, but essentially this guy is crying, and one of the men says, "A man cries with his shoulders back and his head up." And I found that so powerful seeing that because I had so many tears watching that film. And I found it so transformational as yes, this is where we're moving to. It's not boys don't cry. It's the man cries. It shows strength when the man cries
Mm.
rather than weakness.
Yeah.
So, I mean, the elements, you mentioned exploring fire, water, earth, air as metaphors for our personal psyche and mental health. I mean, would you like to talk a
Mm.
little bit about that, please, Sam?
Yeah. The beauty of the map I've mentioned is that it can have these different layers. And I've already talked about the compass points and the seasons. By extension, the seasons of our lives. If the East is childhood and the South is teenagehood. So I've put the elements on as an extra layer there. and the heat of summer is the fire element. So as a map for understanding ourselves, if we don't have a compass or we're just sitting with a fire or a candle, it can remind us of our passion and what do we burn for? What is it that sets us alight in a way like nothing else? And that could be the realm of love with a partner, or something you support, a cause that you really believe in, and connecting with fire. But really going deeper than that, Piers, to explore the layers of meaning in a fire. So the art of fire lighting is instructive here. So I'm starting a campfire. I need to gather resources. I need to be mindful and careful, especially in the early stages of a fire. So perhaps we'd add another metaphor here. A young fire is like a young child, or the early part of a relationship, and it takes care to nurture that flame. And then a fire can get really big, really hot, dangerous, really powerful. And then a mature fire has these coals that can cook our food and give us nourishment and food. So if we then extend that to what are we passionate about? If I'm passionate about ceasefire somewhere, or about marching for just a social justice cause, what resources do I need to prepare in advance? How can I tend to it in its early stages? Perhaps it's a business idea. What elements are needed? What relationships are needed? How do I tend to it? What will it look like when it's at full heat? And how do I care for it at that stage? What will it look like when it's mature? And then how can that nurture through cooking the meat, spreading that message. So perhaps I do a lot of the work at the beginning of a business or the beginning of activism, but the maturing process of my fire, my inner eternal flame, is then how do I then pass that on to students or apprentices or those who want to follow in my footsteps, and using those hot coals of a mature man to then mentor younger men so they can carry their own fires and start their own fires. So yeah, firecraft is full of layers. I haven't even mentioned how the elements link to each other. So what if it's windy, what does that air element mean? Air represents fear. So if you've got fear blowing in, it's going to dampen your fire down, or maybe it's going to fan it into more flame if it's wise fear with caution and wisdom imbued in the air, or breath that is held and blown in mindfully to fan those coals. Yeah. All of these layers.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you. I think in the shamanic teachings I learned was it was wheels upon wheels. So you'd have the elements on one wheel, and so it was a way of teaching. And then another wheel would be, the directions. And so yeah, I definitely can resonate with that. Are there any books that, if people are interested in this, are there any resources or places people can learn more about, if they're, healing through nature?
Yeah, I'm sorry, I don't know them all by name, but I've picked on lots of different books. The genre or a lot of the work is in the school of eco psychology or ecotherapy. So I recommend looking there. There's some good practice down in Dartmoor and the Southwest. That's been instructive. And then generally some books with the word rewilding in, rewild yourself. That is Rachel Corrie, I think. Layers of these maps and nature. Look at those two threads.
Great. I haven't heard of eco psychology or eco psychotherapy. That sounds fast. I think I might have sort of seen an article, but it's not really read anything on it. So that sounds fascinating. Um, what other things? Knowing our relationship to all of nature helps us on a healthy journey of life. You know, what are some of the practices? We talked of some of the practices, but what are some other practices we can do, for our mental health?
Hmm. I think I'm going to repeat a point from earlier. It's
Mhm.
slowing down and looking, witnessing, and listening to what's happening out there, outside. So, by creating space in our daily rhythms to actually listen and look outside, I think we'll start to see things rather than rushing or be distracted by our agendas and our phones. Looking at our breath, slowing down our breath, but with eyes open, because a lot of meditation is eyes closed and we go inwards. And this invitation is to have our eyes open and do more of a movement meditation. So, knowing that we are one with nature, then by sort of shifting that high energy capitalist urban vibration that we'll carry in ourselves, slowing that down, I find that the forest sort of opens up for me. And then I'll start seeing things on my path and I will become more observant. And it feels like the forest is more generous. Maybe it's a bit of both. The other day, for example, driving along a country lane, there was a sparrowhawk standing on the road with a robin or a songbird in its talons. Beautiful and quite rare for me to see. We have a lot of buzzards and red kites down here at the moment. But a sparrowhawk right in front of me, I stopped the car and the bird looked me in the eye and then flew forward 10 meters. I drove forward and it stayed and looked me in again. So I sat with that. I thought, this is so rare. I need to listen. It got my attention. Right? A younger version of me would have just been like, great, take a picture, move on, tell someone I saw it. But by slowing down and being considerate, knowing me and the bird are part of one ecosystem, what was the message for me? Does this interaction have some wisdom to help me understand part of my journey? Because it's so rare. It's not just seeing a pigeon on my garden fence post. It's a bird of prey hunting. I know where in my life I'm hunting some objectives at the moment. And I took that as encouragement. Sam, you've got your kill in your hands already, got your objective. Now just get off the ground and start flying, because a bird of prey shouldn't be on the road. It was beautiful. And certainly not daily, but there are regular interactions where I see things, and the more I listen, the more I see, and the more I see, the more I'm listening, if you get, and I capture them in a journal. So I have this library that I can look back on and say, there was a gift, there was a message, there was something, that a teacher from the plant or animal kingdom. I had a small holding in South Africa about 15 years ago, and I would walk every day on the land and just sort of slow down and look at the plants. What are they doing? How do I connect with them? And I would say there was a divine force speaking through them, and it was so helpful and instructive. And yeah, essentially it was a movement medicine, a movement meditation.
Mm. Thank you. It's very inspiring. It just brings memories for me doing my sit spot in the garden. There's been an owl. It's gone the last couple of weeks, but it's been there for a few months. Every morning I'll go in and she'll move. And I think it's a short-eared owl. And then there was one day last year, I was just sat there and a little weasel came out with a little white tail. And it was like, because I wasn't moving, it came really close, a couple of feet away from me. And You know, I've seen weasels or stoats from a distance, you know, maybe 10 meters running really quickly. But to actually just have it sniffing around my feet is like, wow.
Mm,
Yeah, really, really special for us to reconnect. I do see in my own trauma as a child, after my friend committed suicide when I was a teenager at boarding school, I went and lived in the woods. I created a den and I'd go there every single day for 4, 5, 6 hours.
mm,
And for me, that was the one thing that healed me more than
mm,
anything else. There was no one else there. And it was just so lovely to reconnect with that part. So you, yeah, have inspired me to get outside into the nature more. So
yeah.
thank you, thank you. So as we start to wrap up the conversation today, I really enjoyed our conversation. How do people find out more about you and your work, Sam?
Yeah. Great. Thanks, Piers. I've loved chatting. Mm. Yeah, so I run retreats for men. We've got one in the summer coming up called the Sacred Hunter.
Mm,
It's all about connecting with nature in a way that honors nature. And I believe the hunters of old were not colonial masters who just took the resources, but they did it in a prayerful, mindful way and said, "Hey, if I am one with this tree, would you be willing to be chopped down?" It might sound really weird, but asking permission from the trees and really listening in for an answer. I do that now, and I hear a yes or I hear a no just in my gut. Um, Asking, I've read stories of ancient times. Hunters would ask the deer before pulling the bow arrow, before pulling the string. And the question is, would you feed my family? So we will be bringing these themes of protection, of um, goal setting, and men on a mission to create something great. And that's the Sacred Hunter in June. We also have an online circle called the Men's Fire, which is a home base to explore these themes, to gather around a symbolic fire and connect and challenge and encourage each other. And that's all on our website, firstmen.co.uk. And I also work with men one-on-one to connect them to these themes of nature as therapy, nature as medicine, and find ourselves sort of coming home to ourselves as animal.
mm,
Yeah, and of course
thank
on
you.
all the social platforms as well, peers like Facebook and Instagram.
Mm, okay. Well, I'll put into the description First Men. So if people want to learn more, then please do reach out. So, yeah, blessings. Wonderful work you're doing. And thank you. And I look forward, hopefully this summer, our paths cross again.
Hope so. Thank you, peers.
Okay. Take care. Blessings.